Welcome to BR Ambedkar Open University students. Today, let's discuss about one important topic titled Ethics and Cross-Cultural Issues. When it comes to ethics, we have to delve deep into various aspects such as personality and culture. These two things are interlinked. In this area, cross-cultural studies, there is one very important person to be quoted. His name is Professor Geert Hofstede. He is an emeritus professor of Maastricht University. He says, culture includes appearance, attire, feelings and reactions, traditions and customs, songs, food habits, communication with global technology. So, there are so many aspects to be covered under the umbrella of cross-cultural issues, and ethics are interlinked to these cross-cultural issues. I quote Geert Hofstede here, culture is more often a source of conflict than of synergy. Cultural differences are nuisance at best and often a disaster, unquote, Professor Geert Hofstede. As he said, culture often creates lot of problems among the people, whether it is a society, it is a home or it is an office place, a workplace or any other place, where certain individuals are involved to do something, there these cultural elements will be working underneath without showing their face on the surface, but they have their own influence on personality and attitude also. That is where again ethics will be compromised. Now, when it comes to ethics, we have to talk about personality also, because personality is integral part of any individual and individual will have ethics and values. So, there are so many determinants of personality according to experts in this field, and there are broadly 4 determinants of personality. To form a complete personality, these 4 determinants will be influencing factors on any individual. Number 1 is biological factors. Under biological factors, you have heredity, brain and physical features. These things will come as a heredity to a person. You cannot change much about it, because it is biological, natural, genetic, and it comes from grandfather to father to son and so on. So, much cannot be done about it. Then comes second aspect, second determinant, that is family and social factors. Under family, there are so many things, the way a person's upbringing happened and the society in which a person is living and the family background, the persons who are living in that family, the surroundings where ABC is growing, all these things will contribute to the personality of an individual. So, you cannot say so and so's personality is good, bad or ugly, because it all depends on so many factors, and it can be molded also, but it takes a lot of time to change an individual. Then the third determinant is cultural factor. In some cultures, as you understand, independence is a dominant factor, and in some cultures aggressiveness is seen, in some cultures cooperativeness is seen, and in some cultures lot of struggle is seen. So, it all depends from which cultural background a person is hailing. Based on that, his values, his culture, his morals and his ethics and so many other things will be depending. Because of that, even behavioral changes will happen. So, it is a very big topic, but we will try to interlink these things, ethics and cultural factors. So, third one is cultural. Fourth aspect or determinant is situational factors. As individuals, we are exposed to so many situations in our day to day life, maybe at home, in the society or at the workplace. So, these situations are broadly categorized into two aspects. Number one is positive situations, then second one is negative situations. So, when the situation is positive, we talk positively, we react positively and we think positively, and our deeds also will be positive. By some reason, if the situation is negative, forcing an individual to act negatively, then the thought process also will be negative, and the way we use words also will be negative, and the reaction also will be negative. So, what aspect is influencing a person and what aspect is influencing a personality, it is very difficult to define. It all depends on the 4 factors mentioned here, 4 determinants rather say. So, on the outset, suddenly branding or deciding so and so's personality is like this is not ethical actually, because you do not know what is the background of that person, number 1, and to what biological background they have you do not know, and to what family and social background they belong to you do not know. Then cultural factors also we can't imagine, and situations you can't guess. So, based on these 4, the personality is depending and their reaction also depends. As we are discussing about determinants of personality, there are more examples about these things. Biological factors, as I said, heredity, brain and other physical features. I would like to give an example of Michael Jackson, the famous dancer. Everybody knows what happened to him. Michael Jackson, though he was very successful in his field, he was a fastest dancer in the world, and even Indian fast dancer like Prabhudeva also could not compete with him. But that person somehow did not like his features, face features. So, what he has done? He has undergone major operations. He used best plastic surgeons in the world, and he tried to change the outlook. He tried to sharpen his nose, then brighten his cheeks, then color of the complexion of the skin color also he wanted to change. But as I said, these biological factors are very difficult to change. No matter what, you cannot change these factors. So, he tried a lot, but at last he was sleeping in the oxygen chamber using lot of chemicals, and ultimately he died. After his death, they did postmortem and found that nearly 250 grams or 350 grams of tablets were found in his stomach, which were not even digested. So, though he was stinkingly rich, super fast dancer and highly successful, he wanted to change his biological factors and he failed. So, these determinants of personality, certain things cannot be changed. Then when it comes to family and social factors, whatever happened within the family, maybe there is a disturbance in the family or in the society itself where they are living, lot of disturbances are there, maybe because of neighbors, maybe because of somebody, maybe because of some reason they have social disturbances. So, what happens? Their personality will be influenced, either they grow aggressive or they grow submissive or they will be irritated, so many other factors. So, those things will be embedded into their personality. So, they suddenly get irritated, they suddenly show their anger, they show their frustration, all these things will be reflected. So, the behavior also will change, and these things can be modified. Any disturbance, any suppression, anything can be changed, like stress, you can remove it, stress management techniques are there. So, that can be done. Even family aggression, family disturbances also can be resolved. So, some personality factors can be changed. Then when it comes to cultural factors, independence, aggressions, cooperation, competition, all these things are seen in some cultures. For example, within India also, in some parts of North India, people are very aggressive. Even their way of speaking will be very aggressive. They can't talk slowly. When they speak, it is as if they are shouting, and when you ask something also, there is a rash reply. So, why it is happening? If you go deep into their personality, their society was like that, their culture was like that. In their culture, they have to speak loudly. If you go to extreme south, people speak very fast. For example, Kerala, the language itself is very fast, difficult to understand. So, why it is happening? Because the linguistic habits are formed like that, and geographical factors are there, and so many other aspects. All these are influencing a personality and their ethics, their values, everything will be changed because of that. Then as I said, the last factor is situational factor, that is positive or negative. How can we say that something is positive? What looks positive to you may not be positive to other person, and what appears to be negative for you may not be negative for the person who is doing that. So, it is very difficult to understand unless you sit and analyze such situations. But what we do as individuals, we immediately react. When a person faces and says something without understanding, you also retaliate. Then what happens? A conflict will be arising. So, we have to wait a minute, think why so and so is saying like this, what is the background. Then you have to try to analyze the situation, then react. I know it is difficult, but little bit patience and understanding is required to understand these things, because if you want to be a successful individual in the society, you have to understand determinants of personality and all 6 dimensions of culture, then 2 broad types of personality, A type and B type. Then comes your ethics matter. So, what is ethical to you may not be ethical to other person, and what is said value to you may not be applicable to other person. So, there is enough complexity in dealing with human beings. Let us proceed further. Basically, there are 2 types of personalities, type A and type B. For example, type A personalities, and I already told these 4 determinants will be silently working on the person. Even then, type A personalities are always moving, walking and eating rapidly, feel impatient with the rate at which most events are taking place. It means they cannot understand slowness, they do not like slowness, they will be moving, they are very fast, they will be multitasking, and they cannot cope with leisure time. They cannot sit idle, they should be doing some work or the other. That is why adjustment will be very difficult with type A personalities, and they are obsessed with numbers, measuring their success in terms of how many or how much they have done every day. So, they are always calculative, measuring, analytical, A type. And there is another broad type, that is called type B personality. Type B personality, these people never suffer from a sense of time urgency with its accompanying impatience. So, they do not bother about timelessness or urgency, nothing, they go in their own pace, and that will be an irritating factor for type A personalities. Imagine a workplace where type A and type B, both type of people are working. So, lot of conflict can arise, and to deal with such people, the person who is dealing with them, maybe leader, maybe manager, they will have very tough time. Then type B feel no need to display or discuss either their achievements or accomplishments unless such exposure is demanded by the situation. They hardly speak about their achievement, their talent, nothing they speak. If there is a need, they do. If they like, they do. But on the contrary, type A will be exhibiting and doing things very fast. And coming to type B again, play for fun and relaxation instead of exhibit their superiority at any cost. They do not like to exhibit their superiority, but type A will be trying to guide people, suggest something or lead something. So, that is a conflict, and type B personalities can relax without any guilt in their mind. They do not feel urgency, they do not follow the timings, they are very relaxed people, but they are also talented, but it has to be channelized. So, broadly we have to remember 2 types of personalities, and earlier I said 4 determinants. Now, more about Hofstede's dimensions of national culture. Professor Geert Hofstede 1967 to 73 analyzed a large database of employee values scores collected within IBM. IBM is a IT giant, as everybody knows. So, thousands of employees are there, it is a multinational company across the globe. So, he studied these people for many years. It covered more than 70 countries, from which he used the 40 countries with the largest groups and extended the analysis to 50 countries and 3 regions. It is a very big study, years together Hofstede studied these things and came out with some suggestions about cultural aspects. Studies include respondent groups as commercial airline pilots and students in 23 countries, civil service managers in 14 countries, upmarket consumers in 15 countries and elites in 19 countries. So, it is a huge cross section of the globe and some years it must have taken to study, analyze and propose his theory, cross cultural dimensions. The values that distinguished country cultures categorized into 4 groups. These became the Hofstede dimensions of national culture. In that, number 1 is power distance, for short PDI, individualism versus collectivism, IDV, masculinity versus femininity, MAS, and uncertainty avoidance, UAI. So, these are the 4 broad cultural dimensions suggested and propagated by Geert Hofstede, who is a pioneer in cross cultural studies. Additions to Hofstede dimensions. In 1991, Michael Harris Bond added the 5th dimension by conducting research on international students together with Chinese professors. Based on Confucian thinking, Confucius is a famous philosopher, as all of you know, you must have heard. Based on Confucian thinking, that dimension was called long term orientation, LTO for short, and was applied to 23 countries. Another huge study, another dimension is added to the earlier existing 4 dimensions of culture. Now, in 2010, Michael Minkow generated 2 dimensions using recent world values. One was a new dimension and the second was more or less a replication of the 5th dimension. The number of country scores for the 5th dimension could now be extended to 93. So, 93 countries across the globe were taken into consideration for this huge cross cultural study. On one hand, the 5th dimension of Bond and of Minkow correlate strongly, yet the constructs are not fully identical. In 2010 edition of Cultures and Organizations, a 6th dimension has been added based on Michael Minkow's analysis of the world values. We are talking about ethics and cross cultural issues. So, world values are also added to these cultural dimensions. This new dimension is called indulgence versus restraint, IND for short. Now, this is the model displayed for your convenience. Indulgence versus restraint, long term versus short term orientation, masculinity versus femininity, tolerance and uncertainty, avoidance of uncertainty, individuality, power distance. These are the 6 dimensions so far existing when we talk about cross cultural dimensions and issues. Now, what is power distance? Let us look at these dimensions one by one. Power distance is the distance maintained between the hierarchy. For example, a CEO of the company and a chauffeur or driver of that CEO's car. How much power distance will be there between these 2 people? To understand the concept very simply, lot of power distance is there and it is clearly visible between this higher class and lower class employees. But in Indian context or eastern countries, eastern hemisphere of the globe, these differences may not be seen much. But western side, you can observe that most of the people do not even bother about power distance. For example, an American employee of some organization may say, Mac told me to come at 10 o'clock. Mac may be a CEO also, we never know, but he is calling CEO by name. That is their culture, because they do not mind calling CEO by name. Even Mac, the CEO, may call the chauffeur Mr. John, and he is giving that respect, Mr. So, what is happening? It is egalitarian society. They are not bothering about their levels in the society. So, that is low power distance. Whereas, in eastern countries, a general manager and a supervisor have lot of power distance, lot of their level is different. So, they may not be talking to each other sometimes unless there is a requirement, and they may not be sitting equally also. That is it is included in the culture that whenever a superior officer comes in front of you, you have to show some respect. So, these are the differences. When it comes to power distance, lot of differences are there. For example, in the Middle East, Gulf countries, whether you are a general manager, whether you are a chauffeur, whether you are a typist or you are a CEO, all these people, forgetting their levels of positions, they sit together and have lunch together. That cannot be seen even after thousands of years in eastern countries, including India. Why? Because this power distance is in the blood, in the culture, embedded in the culture, and it is still maintained by people, whether it is corporate, academia or any other place. Next aspect in cultural dimensions, the second one is individualism and collectivism. For example, in eastern society, you see lot of festivals celebrated by people in the societies irrespective of the religions. These festivals are meant for gathering together, celebrating something, play games, cook together and dine together. So, that unity is embedded into culture in the name of festivals. So, that is called collectivism, and wherever we go, we would like to call our friends or just sit and chit chat in groups. That is seen in eastern countries. But whereas, in western countries, they are highly individualistic society. After 17 or 18 years of age, children would not like to stay with parents. They go away and stay in separate accommodations. Parents may try to help, but they feel shy to take help from the parents. That is western society. That is why they grow highly individualistic and they do not like suggestions free of cost, and they do not like interference in their lives. But whereas, eastern countries you see, even at the age of 25 or 30, still children depend on their parents, and there is collective family also, not neutral families. There are what do you call united families, grandfather, uncles, aunts, children, grandchildren, everybody live together. That is seen in eastern countries, because we are collectivist society. That collectivism is embedded into our cultures and in our minds, hearts, everywhere, wherever we go, we like that collectivism. So, lot of differences are there between the western world and the eastern world, and all these things may crop up, may create conflicts at workplace. Then third dimension is masculinity versus femininity. It is not about gender. When we talk about masculinity and femininity, do not misunderstand it with man and woman. No way concerned to man and woman. Masculinity is a nature in the personality where a person tries to dominate others. Femininity is submissiveness. It means bending and listening to somebody who is giving orders. So, this is psychological issue actually, and it is also mixed into culture. In some cultures, masculinity is seen. It does not mean a man is dominating or woman is dominating, but somebody is dominating. In that culture, domination is prominent. That is called masculinity, and femininity is listening and being submissive, following the orders without saying a word, without even questioning that. So, that nature is femininity. So, that may exist among men or women. So, according to Hofstede, this masculinity is femininity is not gender, but it is nature, part of culture. And in eastern society, you may see that there is lot of femininity actually, because even in the historical evidences are there in India, thousands of years of foreign rule has been existing in the history. For example, Mughals, hundreds of years they ruled, then British another 180 or 200 years they ruled, then Portuguese, Dutch, so many other countries people came and ruled India in some parts, and the major foreign rule was British, before that Mughals. So, lot of femininity is seen because we were suppressed and we were silently suffering and we were following the orders and doing everything for them. But in western society you see lot of aggression was there, they retaliated, lot of masculinity is seen. So, in a broader context we have to understand that masculinity and femininity are only about nature, psychology of a person, and in individuals it is existing and individuals are existing in the society where culture is there. So, cross cultural issues may crop up. Then fourth dimension is uncertainty avoidance. In some cultures, when there is uncertain situation, people avoid it. It means they do not want problems, they do not want to encounter problems, they do not want to face problems, they are peace lovers. But in some countries, when uncertainty comes, they stand and they fight. So, it all depends on the situation and the society where they are existing, and the various factors are influencing that situation. So, you can see uncertainty avoidance, but in eastern countries uncertainty avoidance is more, western countries uncertainty avoidance is less. Then comes confusion dimension, where long term and short term orientation will be there. What is that? Long term orientation is seen in eastern countries. It means we will be saving for future, we are thinking about future, we are thinking about children, grandchildren, what can I do for them. So, long term orientation is there in our thinking, in our culture. But western side, today is important. If I can live today, that is enough. Let me think of tomorrow later. So, they are highly practical, pragmatic people. So, that is the difference between these two. So, I have already explained power distance, then individualism versus collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, then masculinity versus femininity, long term orientation and short term orientation, indulgence versus restraint. That is the aspect we have to discuss. Indulgence stands for a society that allows relatively free gratification of basic and natural human drives related to enjoying life and having fun. Restraint stands for a society that suppresses gratification of needs and regulates it by means of strict social norms. So, to understand this, free gratification of basic and natural human drives, it means people feel free, the indulgence is more. In some cultures, restraint is more, it means they restrict themselves against indulgence. So, these are the dimensions coined by Jared Hofstede, and he has developed a scale where high power distance and low power distance is seen in which countries. Then he talked about high uncertainty avoidance, then low uncertainty avoidance. He says western side individualism is more and eastern side collectivism is more. Then when it comes to short term thinking, countries like USA, UK and European countries are more, they are prone to short term thinking because they do not plan for long days or long careers and all these things. That is why their lifespan in the working place also less, and even in social life also they do not live together for long time. And eastern side, when you see, they will be sticking to each other, longing for each other, they want groupism, they want to sit in groups, they celebrate functions together, they invite people, all these things are there. So, that is long term thinking. So, these are the aspects suggested by Hofstede. So, when it comes to ethics and cross cultural issues, broadly we have to understand that ethics, values and morals are related to individuals, and individuals have personalities, and in that again we have A type and B type personalities, and these people represent some culture, XYZ culture, and these cultures will have again 4 aspects. Personality has 4, then 6 dimensions of culture. So, these are the broad things to be remembered as students of MBA, and when you go to some workplace, you naturally have to face and deal with lot of people who are coming from their respective individual cultures, and they represent some society and they come from some background. So, with all those things they are coming to some workplace. and dealing with them is a very challenging task. If you understand these aspects, you can mingle with people very well and you will be a very good team player and very good leader also. Thank you very much.